Today I want to show you an interview that I just shot with a new set of friends of mine named Janelle and Rolando. They searched and searched and searched for a country property. They struggled, they couldn't find anything. They really almost got depressed over the whole ordeal. And then finally, they found a place. And it's a beautiful spot, beautiful home, and beautiful acreage also with a creek. And I want you to hear their story.
I was born in the Philippines.
I grew up in Washington State, and we had country property as a family there. And so I knew I liked the country.
When I was like 2 or 3 years old, moved to Washington State and lived in the Seattle area pretty much most of my life. And so I'm a city boy through and through. Ultimately ended up in Kent, Washington.
Then I married this wonderful guy, and we decided that we wanted to look for some country property of our own.
I'm a naturopathic physician.
And I'm a nurse.
We got married in 2019. So we were living in the city at that time. We kind of had a 2-year plan. We're like, okay, 2 years, let's start looking for property and let's get out into the country. And especially it made my wife happy because she grew up in the country. She's a country girl. And I wanted her to be happy and stuff, and she wasn't quite happy in the city.
Yeah, I would not feel safe walking down the street by myself.
That neighborhood was not like that when we first got there. When I was like a teenager and stuff, where I grew up in the ghetto of Seattle, and that one looked very different. But then Janelle started pointing out this graffiti and stuff, and I was like, no way. And I started noticing them too. Then I was like, you know what, this place is kind of changing really rapidly. Mm-hmm. And you know, it was like, it kind of, and all the things that were happening, we were like, man, this stuff is kind of getting crazy over here.
Yeah.
Somebody got killed close by in a neighborhood, and I was just like, wow, this place is really changing really quickly. Why don't we just not wait for the 2 years to be up? Why don't we just go and start looking now? Yeah. And that's exactly what we did.
So we started looking on Zillow, and we found a lot of properties there. And we looked on the West Coast because that's where we were most familiar with. And so we looked in Washington, Oregon, California, Idaho. You know, we were looking.
Man. You know, I was even looking in Alaska. Like I was looking everywhere. Where would be a good property?
So we planned like a 2-week car trip, that we're going to find hopefully a property, and those 2 weeks turned into 2 months. Right.
Yeah. So a friend told us, "Hey, you got to come down to California. Like there's a place there, it's great, it's beautiful, we're setting up this place here, maybe you can join us." You know, I'm like, oh yeah, like a community of people that's gonna go ahead and do country living together? Yeah, that sounds like a good idea. Went down there, yeah, have an outpost out there. I was like, oh great. So we go over there, this 2-week trip, we're supposed to be 2 weeks in California, maybe make an offer, look around for some property, make an offer on something. There was a piece of property that we were, a couple of pieces of property that we were thinking of making an offer on. And then I was like, wait a minute, like, what are the regulations like over here? You know, and I was like, because we're from Washington where everything's regulated, and I was like, and I'm not too familiar with California. I've heard about regulations, but like, how bad is it really? Is it like Washington standards, you know? And then we looked it up, like, man, it's like Washington too. And so we're like, whoa, so if...
Just for an idea, when I was living in California, my landlord, his son was building a place, and just to get permits and everything before breaking ground was $60,000.
And I was like, whoa. And we kind of added it up. We're like, okay, if it's going to cost us this much for, let's just say, estimate, ballpark, how much it's going to cost for this land, how much it's going to cost for permits, then building materials, and blah, 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 blah. And I was just like, that's going to be way too much, I think. Like, and so what we did was we were kind of in a predicament. We're like sitting there, like, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? And look at this place. And I showed her on Zillow, like, oh, this place, oh, look at that. It's only like, you know, $150 or $82,000 or something like that, like really reasonable. And I was like, oh, it's on 5 acres.
And it has a creek.
Yeah. And she was like, oh, great, let's go see it. It's like, yeah, it's in Tennessee.
Where is
it? It's like, really, Tennessee? And we're like, yeah, it's about 3 days away. What do you think? We're like, and we were just sitting there because we were staying with a friend, and we're just like, are we gonna drive all the way to Tennessee? We're like thinking and praying about it. And we're like, I think we're going to take this trip to Tennessee, right? So anyways, that's where it started. We took the trip, and it kind of started a little rough because I think we hit snow or something like that,
Yeah,
some
we
kind of
did.
traffic. Nothing, we made a couple offers. Didn't go through. We're like, well, where does God want us to be here? We're like, how about we go to the next state over? You know, we passed through there, Arkansas. We're like, well, we came this far. And so we ended up in Arkansas. And then the 2 weeks turned into 2 months of us driving around. And you know what? We were like, man, this is it's kind of costing us like quite a bit more money than we budgeted for. And so what we ended up doing is, instead of doing motels, we ended up just sleeping in the car, which is not a big car. If you look at it, it's a Hyundai Sonata. And we were like, how are we going to make this work? And there is actually a way. You can put the seat down and then put an air mattress in there. And actually, we sleep pretty well.
Yeah.
But that's what we did for like 2 months. And anyways, yeah. And then we ended up having a property. We thought it was beautiful. We thought it was going to work out. It was within our budget, 20 acres. And we were actually looking for just like something with 5 acres, right? So 20 acres, I was like, that's plenty. That's a lot. And we're like, okay, we drive to
Beautiful
Washington.
house.
Beautiful house, beautiful house. Like
We have our offer.
2,500 square foot house. It was gorgeous. And after that, we're like, okay, we're gonna make it. We got a place. Okay, great. Let's get things started. We get to Washington. You know, the next like 2 days later, it doesn't go through. The people, the conservancy or whatever that owned it, the board decided they didn't want to sell it for that small chunk. They wanted the full 200 acres sold altogether. And I was like, how much do they want? 1.8 million. I was like, okay. I was like, hey, Mom, why don't we combine our forces and get this 1.8 million? And you know, obviously that didn't work. Okay. So we were kind of depressed there for a good amount of time.
Because we had looked and we'd really put effort into it. And we'd put offers in, and this is a year into looking for property now. And like nothing was turning out. But it wasn't, we didn't want to stay where we were either.
Right.
So we ended up setting a date, and we're like, okay, we're going to move out on this date, and we're going to...
Even if we have to rent.
Even if we have to rent some country property first.
Yeah. And the thing is, and she mentioned a year out, because we were starting to look in Washington well before we made this road trip. Right. And, but anyways, we were really discouraged. And then I look on Zillow, and this property, which is not that good of pictures, you know, it wasn't that pretty looking, but I knew the water looked clear. And I was like, oh, the water's clear. I can't change the land, but I can change the house. You know, so I was like, as the land is good, let's go for it. And we were originally looking for 5 acres, ended up being 50 acres. And I'm like, okay, well, I don't know how we're gonna be able to maintain 50 acres, but let's just go for it, you know?
It's in our price range, and we thought, okay, let's do it.
And the crazy thing is, it was a owner. It was selling owner to owner. So there was no real estate agent involved. And we called the lady that owned the property, and we asked, we said, hey, we want this property. And it's like, oh, great. And she showed us all these pictures and videos. And then she was mentioning that, you know, this thing has been sitting here for 3 weeks or something, and nobody said anything. But this week, we have 2 other bidders besides you. And I was like, oh, really? It's like, what? Come on, Lord, let's do this. We thought we had this. But anyways, they said, okay, so what's your offer? We gave her offer. And after that, she said, and like the next day she was like, I'll be honest with you. We have 2 other offers. Like I mentioned, they're higher than your offer, but we're going to pray about it. And so praise the Lord, they're a praying couple, you know, and they prayed about it. The next day, we were eager, we were excited, but yet we were like, okay, let's just, if it's going to be another one, you know, take another hit, then okay, fine. But it was in the morning, and they call us up, and they said, you know, we prayed about it, we were really thinking about it very hard, and we just think that the Lord wants us to give it to you, so we're giving it to you guys. And we were just like, oh, we were so thrilled.
I just started crying. I was
Yeah.
like, thank you, Lord.
Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah. It was pretty intense because, and it's amazing because I kind of look back on it and I'm like, maybe God was just trying to make sure that we knew we had no hand in getting this property, you know?
Yes, all
And
God.
yeah, because I always thought like, well, if I work hard enough, if I keep looking, I'll find a place. I'll find a place, right? And this one was like, no, I can't do it. And this one was just given by God. And it's interesting. Even the people that were surveying this property, when they surveyed it, and they're like, they asked us how much we paid for it, and they're kind of surprised, like, wait, how much did you pay for it again? And it's like, I give them the number, they're like, wow, that's a real deal. Because of the quality of the property, and the creek goes all the way through the whole thing. It's 50 acres. And anyways, the surveyor guys were kind of just surprised because they could have gotten a lot more for it. But praise the Lord, only God can do something like that, man. Even with all the things that we went through and the things that we're still going through, because I mean, it's a I said I'm a city boy through and through. So everything's a learning experience. I gotta say, it is worth it. Yeah, it's definitely worth it. Janelle says, she says she feels like we're on vacation all the time.
Yeah, I do.
and I think it's just like every time you go to sleep, you hear, country sounds, and it's always just relaxing. It's always just, and we still get our work done. We have, as long as we have internet connection, and it's kind of difficult around here, but praise the Lord, we have enough. We can still get our work done. So the crazy thing is, when you look at a house online, the pictures look so good. And then you go to that property, you take a look at it in real life, and it's usually not nearly as pretty as the pictures. And the interesting thing is, with this property that we were looking at online, the pictures were not very good at all. But I thought that the creek looked clear, and I thought that was enough because I can't change I can change the house, but I can't change the land. And so we went and we took it, and without even seeing the place face to face. So it was sight unseen, and we were like, we still wanted it, and almost like just fully like putting our faith in God. And once we got here, we were already about ready to close and all that stuff. We got here, we actually got inside the place, and we took a look around, and it was beautiful. And praise the Lord that it was beautiful, that it actually worked out. But yeah, sight unseen, and it still worked. For those that are considering getting into country living, there's really never a perfect time to get into the country, I don't think. But if you really, you really have a burden in your heart to actually get out there, even if you have to rent or whatever it is, get out there. You're not going to get the perfect property. And that's something that we were dealing with too. Like, we had a checklist of what we wanted. And even the house that we ended up trying to make an offer on, that didn't have everything we wanted. This is what we wanted. We wanted the nice year-round running creek. We wanted land that was easily tillable. Praise the Lord that God kind of gave us exactly that. But we were satisfied with less. Understanding that we're not trying to. This is not something that, I guess it's like, are we trying to guide ourselves, or are we trying to let God guide us, right? And at the end of the day, it was like, you know what, I can't try to guide myself. It wasn't working, right? But when the Lord was guiding it, things just seem to happen. So gotta have faith in the Lord.
What a powerful testimony that can encourage those of you who have struggled to find something and still haven't found something. My wife and I, we searched for years. Don't give up. Keep searching. Keep studying. Get to know what you're doing thoroughly. Make sure you know how you're going to be able to make a living out in the country, and allow God to lead. Now, if you like this video, hit the subscribe button, and God bless, and have a fantastic day.